What's going on, people? Welcome back to the opposition preview. As this time we face Fulham. Palace are trying to make it 4 wins in a row. And the last time we've done that, back in 2020. And I'm joined by Jack here from Fulhamish podcast. The link will be in the description down below where you can check out their brilliant work. As always, if you do enjoy this, like, subscribe, let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Jack, first of all, how you doing? Season's coming towards an end. Not much separates us, funny enough, in terms of league positions. But how would you describe your season so far?
I think our season's been okay. Last season we finished in the top half, and there were shouts of a European spot, and it was our first season back in the Premier League, and we performed so well. And you could look at it in terms of from a neutral and looking at it and say, "Oh, Fulham on in the top half, and this season have they dropped off a little bit?" To the answer, I mean, yes, but I don't think it's been too bad. We obviously lost Alexander Mitrovic in the summer, who was a huge loss. We almost lost Willian. We almost lost Marco Silva. We almost lost João Palhinha. It was almost a complete catastrophe from a Fulham point of view, but we managed to keep hold of all of those, the manager and those two players, and then we brought a few players in as well. And for us, this season was just about trying to avoid being anywhere near a relegation battle, which we have done, thankfully. And yeah, the season as a whole, it's been pretty exciting as well. We've got to our first ever Carabao Cup semi-final, which was exciting. 4 points off of Arsenal. We won in the last minute at Old Trafford. We beat Tottenham at home quite convincing as well. So it's been still a really positive season, albeit not in the top half like last season.
Yeah, so coming towards the end of the season, what are your objectives? What are you trying to play for? It's weird because some teams just have nothing to play for. Some teams have their own personal goals. When I look at the league table, European spots, it's not impossible. It will be hard. It's not impossible. Is that the aim? Top half? Like, what would you be happy with?
I think in terms of an expectation between now and the end of the season, there isn't really much of one. We'd quite like to end the season positively. You always want to end the season well and then build that into the start of the next season. We've got yourselves to play. We play Brentford still. We've got Manchester City and we've got Luton. So we'd just like to end the season on a good points total and with a real good feeling. In terms of a position, I can't really see us finishing any higher than where we are now. I don't think we're going to finish in the top half. I don't think we're certainly not going to get qualified for these European spots. I don't think we've necessarily got the quality there at the moment, but that's perfectly fine in our eyes. It's only our second season in the Premier League, and we've completely avoided the drop while still having some fun games and some enjoyable times. So for us, we just want to end the season on a high.
So of course, we'll catch up next season. In relation where Premier League football come now as well. I know there were talks about being Palace getting relegated, but so we'll catch up next season about your expectations. But are you already looking ahead now? Into next season, some of the players that you might need to get rid of, some positions that you need to improve. Is that like what's happening now at Fulham? Because we've had that for a few years. I mean, as soon as we stay up, we can't really do much in terms of pushing up the table. We won't be able to get relegated. The difference now is that we have got a new manager, so we are still looking forward to the following games, and there is something still to play for, especially for the players to prove themselves. But for you as a fan, is it now what can we do next to try push into that top 10?
Yeah, I think so. In terms of whether the board are thinking that is another thing, but Fulham fans, we want to see us starting to get stuff sorted for next season. We've got a few players out of contract that we'd hopefully like to try and extend, and then looking at kind of what areas of the pitch can we improve on and what gaps in the team can we plug. Whether the board are finished thinking about that is another thing. Fulham fans aren't particularly happy with the way the club is run sometimes in terms of long-term planning. We always seem to just go for short-term options and just hope that they get us over the line, which has worked this season and worked last season. But we've seen with Fulham time and time again that it hasn't worked and they have been relegated. So, Fulham fans just want to see a little bit of longevity. And it is going to be our third season in the Premier League next year. So we're hoping that, we've put a few building blocks in place and that we can build. And as I've mentioned, yes, we're obviously looking ahead, but obviously we still want to do well towards the end of this season.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
We'll still be looking at these next 4 games and saying, right, let's try and have some decent performances and try to pick up as many points as we possibly can.
What about Palace? Let's get your thoughts on Palace. It's been if you move the Glasner aspect aside, before Glasner, it has been a horrible watch. There was so much drama on and off the pitch with pre-match interviews, post-match interviews, results, protests. It's been crazy. But now that we've got Oliver Glasner in charge, as I mentioned at the start, we are going for a 4th win in a row, which hasn't happened in about, funny enough, 4 years. What have you made of Palace under Glasner?
I remember speaking to you at the back end of last season when Roy Hodgson came in, and I remember you asking me, do you think that Palace should keep Roy Hodgson? And my answer was no. In terms of, I think that you've got a really and I still think this, you've got such a fantastic squad with loads of, energetic, capable players who are still a lot who are quite young, and they need an attacking-minded kind of progressive coach who's going to get the best out of them. And you see now with Glasner, that seems to be what you're getting. Even with, a few players out, obviously there's no Cheick Doucouré. Mateus Frank is obviously injured as well. Mark Gay, and you're still performing quite well under him, and you've got so many technical players that I think are really, really good. And I always seem to talk to my mates about this. I always I've got a bit of a soft spot for Palace. One of my best mates is a Palace fan. I quite like seeing Palace do well as Fulham. And yeah, I think that, there's a real sense of excitement at Crystal Palace. In terms of next season, it all kind of, I guess, depends upon what happens with the likes of Eze and Elise and Mark Gay, whether you're able to keep them on and whatnot. But in terms of for the now, I think just for Palace, it's just about enjoying it and enjoying kind of exciting football, scoring goals for fun and getting the best out of these really good technical players.
Yeah, well, I've looked at your results before we started, and it's been weird sort of results. I mean, you've had some, wins against West Ham, which was good, but then it's been losses against Forest and Newcastle. What can we really expect from Fulham then on the weekend? Are we expecting like a Fulham side that is not full out, not going all out now that the season's pretty much settled? Like, is that the case? It's a bit confusing. While looking at the results, it's confusing as someone who doesn't watch Fulham week in, week out, because you beat Tottenham 3-0 as well, not that long ago. But then you also had some, Forest 3-1 is confusing to me. Draw against Sheffield United, a bit baffling as well. Like, what can we expect?
Yeah, I mean, so that Tottenham result came before the last international break in March. And since coming back from that, I don't want to use the term, but it does look like the team are pretty much on the beach and don't really seem to be that bothered. The performances haven't been great for a while now. That Sheffield United game, I remember going up to Bramall Lane when we were 3-1 down, and it was just a bit of a mess. Nottingham Forest, we were 3-0 down before half time. Newcastle, we didn't really do an awful lot. We were really poor against Liverpool as well. So it's been a real kind of disappointing few weeks for Fulham. And, Fulham as I've mentioned, we want to end the season strongly. We want to end the season well. And, hopefully we're able to kind of kickstart that against yourselves. But, you look at the two teams in terms of form, and, everything at the moment seems to be kind of swinging more into Crystal Palace's favour than it does Fulham. And it's probably not the best time for us to be playing yourselves. But yeah, it's been a very weird few weeks. And, we've kind of had that throughout the season where we've had moments where it's been fantastic. And like we won 2 games back to back in the space of 4 days, 5-0. And then before the last international break, we beat Tottenham, we beat United, we beat Brighton, all really convincingly. But now after the international break, and we've dipped again, and it's been a little bit of a bitty season where we've not been able to be consistent over the course of 38 games.
Yeah, so for the players, who do we watch out for then? As you said, you've been a bit inconsistent. Maybe some of the players are on the beach, but who's not on the beach? Who's still out there on the football pitch that's performing week in, week out?
Well, I mean, if you'd have asked me this about a month ago, I would have said the first player to look out for is Rodrigo Muniz, our striker, who won the Player of the Month last month, scored 8 goals in 8 games or something ridiculous like that. But he hasn't scored since picking up that award.
Wow.
Despite that, though, I know. Despite not putting the ball in the back of the net, his performances have actually still been pretty solid in terms of a number 9 who's able to hold the ball up and bring others into play. He's been fantastic. So I'd say he's certainly one to watch. Anthony Robinson's had a really good season from left back, producing loads of overlapping runs and putting balls into the box and creating chances while also being really good defensively. Another player who I'm hoping is going to be back is Willian. He wasn't available for our game last week against Liverpool. We picked up a little bit of a knock. So I'm hoping he's back because him and Robinson down that left-hand side are so crucial to the way that we play. So they're certainly the three. And then obviously, João Palhinha's brilliant. He's absolutely fantastic. So he's someone who I expect to have a little bit of a difference in the game for us. Calvin Bassey's also been brilliant as well since coming in from Ajax and has really kind of put that left centre-back position down to himself. So we've still got lots of quality, but it just doesn't seem to be clicking at the moment.
Yeah, that's the thing. As you mentioned, there's a lot of players that you mentioned there. To be fair, there's a lot of players that on their day, if they want to turn up, if they want to play, they can cause trouble. And I guess it reflects on the results as well. You have games like Tottenham, for example, and you have games like Sheffield United or Forest. It depends on if they want to turn up. There's definitely some threats there. And I know you mentioned about form as well, about Palace being on form and Fulham being a bit more struggling than Palace, but it just depends. I mean, if Fulham turn up, then that is not going to be an easy game. But we've also had an injury as well. I was just going to ask your thoughts about some of our players that worry you. But Eze, we've heard as of recording before this that he could potentially be out for this game. Does that give you a boost of confidence?
I mean, I think Eze is a fantastic footballer. So, I mean, I sure hope he isn't playing just because he is such a key player to the way that you play. But even if Eze's not playing, you've got Michael Olise, who's brilliant. Mateta, he's got Mateta, who's scoring goals for fun at the moment. And then even kind of a little bit further back in the way that Glasner's playing, the likes of like Nathaniel Klein and Mitchell have been brilliant, I think. And Adam Wharton in midfield has been fantastic since signing in January. I think he's been a really good signing. So you've got quality all over the pitch. But yeah, if Eze isn't to play, it'd be a huge boost for us.
What type of tactical setup can we expect then from Marcus Silva in this game? Because it's always interesting now that we have Glasner to try and see if it suits us, if it doesn't suit us. Would it be higher pressing? Is it possession-based football at home?
So it will be a 4-3-3. That's always what Marcus Silva, that's kind of his bread and butter. Fulham like to kind of control the ball and kind of have as much of it as they possibly can and look to create chances through the wide areas. And then when they lose the ball, hunt Palace players in packs and try and win it back as quickly as possible. And that's the thing with Fulham under Marcus Silva. He doesn't matter who we're playing. He treats everyone the same and he wants to kind of play the same style of football against everyone and give everyone a go, which is always great to see because it means that whenever we play the big six clubs, we always absolutely give it a go. It can sometimes be to our downfall a little bit and we can concede kind of goals for fun a little bit. Obviously, we conceded 3 before half-time against Forest a few weeks ago as well. So there are certainly areas of the game that need to be improved from Fulham. But that'll be the way that we'll set up in terms of try to dictate play, control the ball, and if we lose it, try and get it back as quickly as possible before, obviously, the technical players that Palace have are able to kind of pull the strings.
I'm just trying to think. Look, if you're going all out, there should be spaces in behind. And the way that Palace are set up under Glasner is that we like to, counter teams, but we are very direct, which has worked out with the players that we've had available. The likes of Eze, Olise, but of course, Eze, we don't know if he will be starting. But in a way, that should be suiting us, and hopefully with the confidence that we have as well. But yeah, it should be. I think it should be a good game. I think both sides should create chances against Newcastle. Newcastle pretty much struggled against us at home to create that many chances. But I think Fulham in this game, especially if you're going for it, it should be a game that maybe for the neutral might be a bit more exciting than the Palace Newcastle game. As a Palace fan, I loved it, the Palace Newcastle game, because we were just dominating and everything was working in our favor. But this game, it might be a bit more of a match, which will be interesting to see. But quickly, score predictions. This is the best part of the show. How do you see it going?
I think it's going to be a really good game of football. I think it's going to be one of those very typical kind of end of season games where both teams just want to kind of put on a little bit of a show, and it's just going to be really kind of back and forward and entertaining. I'm hoping the fact that you played in midweek and we didn't might benefit us slightly, but I can certainly see there being goals for both teams. And I'm going to go with the same score that it was last season that Craven got, and I'm going to go with 2-2.
2-2, 2-2. I have to back the boys. I have to. Look, they've been playing some great football. Eze being out is going to be a miss, but at least he didn't start against Newcastle, so he should be fresh in this game. So hopefully, at least he takes all of the creative outlet and it all goes down his side, which I think will be good. I just have to say 2-1 Palace. Maybe it's just the Palace fan in me, of course, being biased and the confidence and the amount of wins that we've had recently under Glasner. But I think we've still got something to play for in terms of, trying to win every single game. Whereas with the sense that I get from Fulham is that, of course, you want to finish high as possible, but the season is pretty much done. With Palace, I don't really have that feeling. I think we're still looking forward to the games and trying to pick up more points and more wins and push up the table. But look, I'm saying 2-1. Jack, you're saying 2-2. Let us know your score predictions in the comment section down below. And before we go, Jack, how can they find you?
So obviously, I'm part of the Fulhamish podcast, which is available on Twitter, on Spotify, on YouTube. We do kind of 3 shows a week. There's one on Spotify and there's one on YouTube talking about the Palace game in extensive detail. So if you want to hear some more Fulham fans, that's where you can find us.
Yes, make sure to check that out. The link will be in the description down below. That's it from Jack and me. And until next time, up the Palace.